I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic, and this is the Real Critic Roundtable. You haven't seen me in a minute because I've been traveling, running around places, and man, I'm a little tired. But I was able to corral Katia Woods, and she's been running around doing a whole lot of stuff too. Katia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. And we saw each other out of the box. Wasn't that nice? We
It,
all
it, re-
alive. We're
it,
not an avatar, right?
it was so good to be out there in LA at the African American Film Critics Association Awards. I did the red carpet. I know you said you saw me out there.
Reggie
Uh,
was sharp. Don't let these hoodies fool you. Reggie be playing games. Reggie be wearing the hoodies and the little button-down shirts. But if you ever are like at the Chicago Film Festival, ABFF, Mr. Ponder cleans up nicely. He is. Listen, the glasses come off. He's like Clark Kent in the booth. You know what I mean? But he was out there doing his thing.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I was able to talk to a couple of folks and two people I wanted to speak to particularly. One is that I want to speak to um, Terence Blanchard. Just the respect that I have for him and his craft. Music is not really my area. That's your area. I mean, you cut your teeth in that area. I know. You
That's
know,
okay, but it's still like I think you're about to say it. He transcends the culture in terms of like obviously people in the jazz world know who he is, and then people in the composer world know who he is. But his work has been so stellar for so long that now people who not necessarily cover music know who he is, and he's very low key.
oh, I didn't even expect the down to earthness, if that's even a word, that I got on the red carpet. He just was spitting knowledge, talking to me about the craft. It was just so enjoyable to talk to him, and I'm not like what I want to say, like a fanboy of a whole lot of people, but I'm gonna tell you, Terrence Blanchard, I'm like, yes, sir. And he deserved. You talk about this thing all the time, Katya, about giving people the flowers before they're
Blind and
gone.
senile and gone.
And so it's really great that people are recognizing, and particularly Africa, recognizing the fact that this is a bad dude, a bad dude. This is a dude that is that everybody should know. So I haven't put out my interview yet. It'll be on my YouTube page, so I'll do that. And then the other person that I want to speak to, I want to speak to Ingenue Ellis, but I actually really wanted to speak to the other Ellis, and that was Jay Ellis. And the reason I want to speak to him is because I said this to him is I felt like he really represented for Black men in Insecure in a way that while people were upset with him with his character sometimes, but then loved his character other times, but it showed the breadth and depth of him as a person, the character that he was playing. So I like the character, and I even like the character that character had, if you understand what I mean. So I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and he's going to be in that new movie Maverick.
Yes, he's going to be in Top Gun. He's
Yeah,
playing the next generation of fighter pilots, which is huge because that's a movie that's going to like I hate to use the term black famous because if you're working and consistently working and you're getting a check, you're winning in this business, right? But that movie will expose him to an audience that may not necessarily watch
that's right.
Insecure,
That's
and
right.
it will raise the bar, and hopefully he got that good Paramount money. So
No, I'm really happy about that. So anyway, yes, it was good to see you. It was good to see KB. It was good to be seen and be in the same area. I the first thing that I really want to talk about today. Oh well, let me back up. The first thing I always want to talk about is what projects you're working on, and it's really funny because I'll call you up or I'll send you a message and I'll say, "Hey, Katya, you want to get together today?" Like, nah, I can't do it today. I am up. I'm on deadline. I'm up to my neck and stuff. But I know you just got through with two particular of things that you wrote. So tell me a little bit about your two projects.
Well, today, the article with Zori Renee, who plays young Jasmine in the movie Master, that is out on Prime Video, Amazon Prime Video, starring Regina Hall. Ooh, that movie is a trip. Like, I told her that movie would have been 5 minutes, because
Yeah.
we don't do that. We don't
Yeah.
stay in spaces, especially when ghosts and stuff
So
starts
let's talk
going
about that
bad.
movie. Let's
Yeah.
definitely talk about that movie. So
See, you know what I mean? Like, so she said, "Oh, I know." I said, "Were you reading it and being like, ooh, what is happening?" Right? But she was lovely, and we talked about a lot of the situations that this young woman puts into, because, why we may not do things as extreme as she did in this movie, but a lot of us are raised to believe in order for us to be successful, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable or put ourselves in situations where we have to suffer some type of trauma, because that's always how we succeeded. And then, if we suffer, then the person behind us will suffer a little less. And, and how we got to choose ourselves sometimes over this fake win. You know what I mean? So she was lovely, lovely, lovely to speak to. And then I have a piece that I'm working on for Cinespeak, excuse me, about South by Southwest that hasn't come out yet. But that was one of the things that kept me up. And then my editor, who's been very generous with me, has assigned me something else that will be coming out this weekend. But the biggest win, I will say, is hearing back. I love Hall & Oates. It's one of the things that my husband and I binds us, you know what I mean? Like I said, I've been writing for a minute, and this seemed to be one of the few times that my husband was like, "Who? What? Oh, when are we?" I was like, "There's no we." You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? And just to hear his team say thank you so much for the thoughtful interview, he really enjoyed it, and that means a lot, because I'm always like, the legends are always the easy ones. It's these other folks where you're like, fix it, Black Jesus. Why are you like this?
Well,
But
I hear you. I hear you when you say
John Oates it's pretty cool. I'm gonna put that one in the win column. And like I said, as I treated myself with some Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Hey, love that. I'm glad you had that. So those are two good things. I am supposed to be, but I can't really talk about it yet because I don't have the total assignment. But I have another article I'm working on with Variety. So I love that. And then the last thing I want to mention about just us out there working, trying to make a living. I saw that you on Twitter talked about that you wanted to write this article about the lack of diversity in these critic organizations or organizations, period, because the Academy is not a critic organization. And right off the bat, I saw a Latino.
That's Christina's organization, does a really good, Latina Media does a really good job. Well, what they do is they source a lot of our reviews and things, and they republish them, and we're like, what Latinos are saying about, like, In the Heights or Encanto or West Side Story, right?
I love
She's been
this.
very, very supportive of my work, and I've tried to show her love back, you know what I mean? And if you do follow Latin Media, follow Christina on Twitter. The reason why I'm saying this is, and I'll give you my water cooler pitch here. There was somebody that tweeted out, I forgot who it is, so I'm not going to throw in a name out just to be inaccurate, that said, because Kristen Stewart had won all these critic awards, she had won more critic awards this season than any other actor. But when we got into the voting, whether it was Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, what's the other one? SAG, she wasn't winning those awards. They didn't translate over, if you know what I mean. And my thing is about, you have to, even though critics necessarily don't vote on the Academy Awards, they do influence the award season. Critics had been behind Kristen. And I know some people get upset with me because they're like, well, I'm picking on a queer woman. I'm like, no, I don't have an issue with her, but they gave her the statue when the film premiered. I believe it was in Venice. and said that she was the anointed one, and we hadn't even seen Being the Ricardos, we hadn't seen The Lost Daughter, we hadn't seen Passing, we hadn't seen The Eyes of Tammy Faye, all these other women's movie. Like, how do you say that this is the one when you haven't seen any of the other movies?
I agree with
Number
that.
two is we also have the reason, the demographic, right? We take a city like New York, and you look at the New York Film Critics Association, and you look at that we know New York is hella diverse, but you wouldn't know it by looking at that critics group. We know Chicago is hella diverse, but you wouldn't know it looking at that critics group. So when you say that this person got the most, we then got to break it down and say, yes, but the majority of the people voting, it is a little bit like the Academy, predominantly a white, straight men, and very traditional, old school media. So when you don't have diversity in that, right, then you get the same type of result. Whereas, again, does Critics' Choice have a gazillion Black people in it? I believe Tim gave me a number of 27 last time he counted, right? And I think that has increased. Maybe we got like 20 Latinos or people that identify as Latinos, right? So when you have a little bit more diversity, it comes out different. And it's not to say that she didn't do a good job or that she doesn't deserve to win. It's you got to look at who is voting. It's the same thing with midterms, right? There's always a lower turnout than there is when we vote for president, even though that's just as important of an election. And we know who consistently votes in our community. Black women always show up and vote, especially Black women over the age of 40. So this is something. So before we start making these statements, we got to look at the polling, the sample group. And in this case, it is very white, very male, very straight, leading these groups. And there needs to be had a discussion. What qualifies someone to be in the group? Now, we have a friend in common, right? Brandon Pope, who works for an affiliate station, has written for Ebony and numerous other people, and talks to more people than I talk to. Why is Brandon Pope not in Chicago's Film Critics Association? He's also president of the Chicago chapter of NABJ. So here's the question that beckons. Are you waiting for him to apply? Are you not recruiting? And then it even comes down to a little, if we drill it down a little bit more, we want Black members. It's almost like HFPA. Since we come in for HFPA, we need to come for these groups too. But we want a certain type of Black person. I'm not going to name the names that people have said, well, we have this person.
Yeah.
But Black people are not monolithic. You know what I mean?
If I may.
Yeah, of course, please.
Is that I think, firstly, I want to go back to the Latina media company and just say that I saw that, and I just love the fact that you have companies saying, I'm not going to wait for the people. And I think that this is very much what you just got through talking about in terms of these critic organizations. Are you going to say, okay, I am really happy with the folks that we have in our organization, so I'm not recruiting and I'm not looking. If you want to come and you want to ask me, then that's a whole different thing. But I am not trying to shake the boat. We're good where we are. But what they did with that is you just announced on Twitter, hey, I think I'm gonna write an article about this, and they said, look, you need somebody to publish that. We'll do it. And I just love that. And the fact that you're Afro-Latino too, I just think that so how great that is. I know that you know them and all that, but it's still
like, to get back to your point, that's a type of article that I wouldn't want to be in a place where they're not going to do right by. Well, they'll try to whitewash it and try to take out the information on why we need to have the discussion. That's why I also feel comfortable going with Christina and her brand and housing it there. But I do think, like, it's not even about forcing people to join something that they don't feel welcomed at. That's not the discussion. The discussion is who gets to decide who has a seat at the table, and why do you get to decide? And why do you get to decide that you're more qualified than this other person when this other person may have a longer resume, been doing this longer, and the only difference between the two of you is the color of your skin.
And the thing is, to me, Katya, is that I approach movies different than you, and I should. You and I should not be the same. My criteria for what makes a good movie is different from your criteria, but I don't. That doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. So the thing I want to say is that when you say a certain type of black, you're not disparaging that black person. What you're really saying is that, can we find a diversity within the diversity? Is that then when I went to Princeton, Princeton gets that suburban oh, uh, academic tract African American. I have friends who are who are those people.
Nothing wrong with
I
that.
love those people. They're my folks. We chilling. I have nothing. That's not what I'm saying. But if Princeton is only going to take those people, I have a problem with that, not with them.
No, and
That
it's true.
show me the diversity. And so obviously I'm part of that diversity because I came from the inner city and so on and so forth. That's what I'm talking about. So as we talk about these critic groups, let's have diversity. Do I have to write for Variety before you say to me, Reggie, we interested in you?
That is the other thing too. And you know what? Um, we need to really start hammering down, because I don't like it when we do it to each other as black people, trying to decide who gets a black card, who don't get a black card, and all of that stuff, right? Which I think is ridiculous because we're not monolithic. It's perfectly okay for you to be a black person, be a Republican. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that you co-sign the foolery that is going on. It's also perfectly okay for you to be a Democrat and say, you know what, I am liberal on these issues and I am conservative on these issues. Either party doesn't mean that you love your black people and you don't want what's best for the community. But when it comes to this film criticism, it's about what white people are comfortable with, not about let's put together the best organization that we can put together. Do you know what I mean?
No, I
And that
do.
is a problem.
I do, and I mention this, and then I want to move on to our next thing, because we had at least two movies I want to talk about, and I do want to talk about South by Southwest.
Oh, for sure.
Is that you loved Power of the Dog? I did not. I thought it was a good movie, solid all the way around. There's no criticism about the movie. It just didn't land with me. That I felt it's directed well. I think it looks good or whatever. My problem was the machine behind it. The machine behind it was like pushing this movie down our throats. I mean, I got Power of the Dog everything. I mean, I got Power of the Dog everything over here at my house, and I got the script. I got some picture book. I got James Campion T-shirt. I got the power. That's a song, right?
But we
Right.
can't be mad at that,
No,
because you know
no,
what?
no, no.
That's what the studio. If you're in marketing, that's what you're supposed to do.
I'm not.
I feel the same way about Licorice Pizza. I'm good. I don't need one more email from that team.
Right, but here was my point, to parallel to your point about mainstream. Mainstream critics were all pushing Power of the Dog. Everybody's pushing Power of the Dog, and I'm just saying that it was almost, somebody called me, a critic called me, and was like, Reggie, are you voting for Power of the Dog? I mean, like, huh?
What? No. Oh my God, no. That's horrible. I'm sorry.
But we were talking about some other stuff, and they were like, "Hey, who you voting for? Are you gonna vote for Power of the Dog?" No, I'm not voting for Power of the Dog.
And that's okay. It's your vote.
But my point is that this machine starts to go, and then all of a sudden we get this mainstream that kind of overwhelms any other thought about any other movies, And so I'm saying that I totally understand where you're coming from.
Oh yeah, but you know me though. I believe in and throwing violence on your ballot if that's not how you feel. Like if you looked at that ballot and you were like, King Richard is my ish or Belford is my ish, do that. Like, you know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
Like, what are you gonna do? Come and knock on your door and be like, you can't be in the organization because you didn't vote with X, Y, and Z? Or if you looked at that ballot and you said, I'm going with Jessica Chastain because I just think she was cute as heck in the costume and she did her own singing in the eyes of Tammy Faye, then do that. It's your ballot. It is not a group
We'll say
experiment.
it.
Did I lose you? What happened, Reggie? I'm on. Hello. Oh, Reggie's frozen. Hold on. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
I have
I hope you there. Katia Woods, are you in the house? Oh, all righty. Well, I am gonna wait until Katia comes back on, but I'm not gonna have you guys just looking at me wait till she comes back on. I the point that we were really trying to make is that Katia Woods and well, let me check out a few things. Ah, I am. Let me see if she sent me a text message. I'm back. All right, so I think I'm back. I hope I'm back. Let me. There you go. You back in the house? Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yeah, my phone rang during this too. I was like, you frozen.
Yeah,
Like the movie,
yeah.
except there was no let it go.
No, well,
Right.
we did kind of let some people go. But anyway, to end up in our conversation on that is that I like the fact that you're going to write this article, and I really like the fact that Latina Media Company is going to partner with you on it. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to get into a couple of movies. The first movie is, and we hadn't even talking about this, is Master, and I'm really glad that you saw it because I saw it as well. And you talked to Zoe Renee, who plays the young lady who is the college student who's there. It's starring Regina Hall, who plays the master, who's really like the keeper of the dorms, and she's also a professor. And so, what was interesting, because I don't want to give away too much, is that I think that it'll get some comparisons to a movie like Get Out, because they use horror to, in my opinion, they use horror to accentuate or punctuate, if you will, the horrors that Black women go through at these elite, predominantly white institutions. On the one hand, you have Regina Hall's character, who is the first Black master ever in the history of this school, and she's trying to navigate it and all these microaggressions. There's so much stuff that, and we call them microaggressions. I hate that word, by the way, because I don't, how can something be small when it's big, you know? Uh, so
There are some in there, but Reggie, I gotta say though, I'm proud of you because this is not your type of flick. You don't really like all that,
girl.
that stuff going on. So I am really proud of you because I know part of you would have been like, you know what, you playing games.
You have never lied. It is not my type of flick, but I think that the writer director Maria, it's hard for me to pronounce her name, but I think that she it was really smart and very provocative. I think they could have done it without the horror part, by the way, but I understand why you had that element. It's this whole thing now of how do we show how horrible it is to be Black in this society. You know, these things that are happening, which are you going to stay and endure it because you have to, because it'll end up making you successful in the end? Are you going to call it out? And if you do, then what'll happen to your career when you do that? What are you going to do within the situation? So the back up for a moment is that Zoe Renee is a freshman. She comes on campus and she's told that the room that she's living in is haunted and that some woman had killed herself and that you don't really want to, I mean, this room, you're going to get caught by whoever this witch or this person is. At the same time, you have Regina King's character Regina Hall's character, who is again the master of this university, and she's trying to take care of the students, take care of the other professors. She's trying to teach. She's trying to do all the things that fall within the auspices of being a master. And then you have, I'm forgetting her name, the other professor who's Black, and she's teaching Black studies, critical race theory. And the three of them are just trying to figure out. One is trying to get tenure. One is trying to just get through their classes. And one is trying to just get through life. I think it's a smart, very provocative type of film. Is it a film that I would just flock to and run to? No, but is it a film that I think is worth watching? I do. I think that the voice of this writer-director is one that should be heard. And I'm glad that they did this particular film.
I saw it the first time at Sundance and then I saw it again. And I think it hits a little bit closer to home when you see it again. Because I think the first time you're just like, what? You still at the school? Like, what? Like, we doing this? Like, we staying? Like, girl, and you staying for the hot? Like, that's just the thing that I kept thinking to myself, like, girl, get out. Really? Like, you have proven you tried it. It didn't work. Go home and regroup. You know what I mean? But when you look at it, the way that Jasmine looks at it is these are the things she has to endure and because to be in that space. You know, the win is she was lucky enough to get into this school. There are a whole bunch of other students that would have loved to have gotten into. There is a scene there where Regina's character and her are talking about the issue that she has with the other professor. And she's looking and she's like, there's nothing wrong with your work per se. It's just that the professor's questioning her Blackness. Do you know what I mean? And Regina's character, instead of as the dean, you thinking that, you know, she came there thinking that, okay, here's a Black woman and my professor's a Black woman. She's gonna come help straighten this out. Instead, gives her not the best advice, right? And when Zoe and I spoke, it's kind of like, and unfortunately, some of our elders do this. Well, I suffered So you have to suffer too. That's just part of the course of success or getting ahead in America. You got to experience trauma if you're Black, and you got to kind of like eat it. And this young girl was failed by all the people, obviously by the institution, but the people that should have looked out for her really failed her. So I think why she's using horror and all these other things, she's also using how we as Black people have this perception that we're not allowed to speak up. We should be grateful for having opportunities. We should be grateful for having wins. There's so many people doing bad. What are you going to do? Call home and complain about stuff going on at school when you're so lucky to be at school? So I think that's the message that she's trying to kind of like, within these things, like choose yourself. And I think like when you see Regina's character going through stuff, she's like, you know, but that's how I got here. I don't know how to move any other way.
And I want to say something about that, is that I don't think that you're saying that our elders were wrong. So that's not what I get from that. I get that that's the only way they know how to teach. Some people might be doing it because they were like, that's the path I went. But some people are doing it because that's the path that they think is going to teach you. Is that if you go through this trauma, you will be ready for the things that are going to come in life. Regina Hall's character says, it doesn't matter where you go, you can leave this institution, but it's going to follow you everywhere you go. So if you think you're haunted now, don't think that by just transferring someplace else that you're not going to be haunted. And I think that commentary is a commentary that a lot of Black folks really experience, where the reality a lot of Black folks experience be like, okay, I worked over here, but then I went over there and had the same thing happen. Then I went over here and had the same thing happen. It must be me. It has to be me, because I'm hitting up against a wall at all these different places. But it really is the system, and I think that that's what they were trying to show here. And I want to do justice by the other actress, and her name is Amber Gray. Anyway, I thought it was a provocative piece.
It's a conversation starter.
It is absolutely a conversation starter. So I think it's worth watching. Is this one that I think that I would say you go run watch? I probably wouldn't check this one out at the theater, even though it is in the theaters, but I would definitely check this one out. It's being streamed on Prime Video. And so I would check this one out for sure. Your thought?
Oh, for sure. You know what I mean? Like if you like things that go bump in the night, you know what I mean? If you want to see it, but you don't like things that go bump in the night, you may want to see it in the daytime, you know. But I do think that I just got to say that Regina Hall's having an amazing year so far. Like she's so talented. And, you know, Hump for Jesus, we get to see her be a little bit more comical. But in this one, she is playing it straight. There's no kikis here, you know.
She's having a great year, and here she is hosting the Oscars.
And I think she's going to do a fabulous job
hosting the Oscars. She's having
her and Juan. I think I'm not the biggest Amy Schumer fan, but I know her and Wanda are going to kiki and cut up in a good way. And
I would say
her for bringing these Black women into the fold.
I will tell you though, is that Wanda's jokes don't always land for me. Is that she's not the funny for me, and I've seen
she's sarcastic.
I have seen her in situations where she thought it was funny, and everybody else was looking at it like, was that supposed to be funny? Because I think her sarcasm is sometimes so true that it's very, very hard to laugh at the situation, because she's pointing out some real things, and she does it in a way that's not like a Chris Rock. Chris Rock will make fun of it. She'll try to laugh at it, but she's not really making fun of it, in my opinion. So
no, but I'm happy for all three of them. Wanda got a hit TV show. Regina's career is going. Well, Amy always been good, but you know what I mean. I think it's a good look, and you know,
well,
and hopefully that check was right.
Well, absolutely. Well, with that, I want to move on to another master, and this is a master that you did not see. And this is from South by Southwest. I did not make it down to South by Southwest. I know you did, so we'll give you a chance to do your little recap of all the movies you saw. I'm gonna check out a couple more on online as well, but you know I'm jealous. So I am recommending that people go to South by Southwest next year. If it the way in which the titles that they have, the movies that they have, the way in which it's organized. I got so many invitations to special parties and interviews and all that type of stuff. I'm gonna tell you, I'm here in Chicago and I don't get those kind of invites. So I am very impressed with just the structure of South by Southwest. And I know you've gone to a lot of different ones, so I'll be interested in your take on that. There's so many movies to watch over the 10 days that it's way too many. I know you talked about one of the festivals you were in this year and you did 41 movies. I'm like, Katya, you are a queen. But this week, the movie I want to highlight is called Master of Light. I really wanted to see this movie. So it was one of the movies that I went out and talked to the publicists and all that type of stuff. Like, can you guys send me the link? Because I want to see this one. I don't want to miss it, so on and so forth. And it tells the story of George Anthony Morton. He's a classical painter who spent almost 12 years in federal prison and for dealing drugs. Let me say why. For dealing drugs. And it's not just another triumph over adversity story. It really highlights the real struggles of trying to rise above your circumstances and the pain of dealing with one's past to create a better future. This guy has to figure out, he has a daughter, so he's trying to raise her. I think she's 5 years old. He learned the drug game from his grandmother and his mother. So the reason that he did all this stuff is because he heard other people saying it was wrong, but he had a grandmama and mother who was doing it. So he's like, I'm just following what, if they say it's okay, it must be okay for me. So he hones his craft in prison, and his work is exquisite. But this documentary is less about his work and more about his journey of redemption, his journey of a reconciliation with his mother, his journey of trying to rehabilitate, and his journey of dealing with the frustration and anger that he has. He goes to counseling. He's trying to help his nephew not go through the same things that he does. It is a very, very powerful piece. I understand why now that it won the best documentary feature at the festival this week. It is. We just talked about a movie saying it's a conversation starter. Master of Light doesn't give any answers either. It asks a lot of questions, like how can two people come from the same family and have a different trajectory? you ask that all the time. You're like, well, we came from the same place, but we're both going different places. What they did with this film is worthy of people watching it. The only thing here, Katya, is that you can't watch it right now. Is that, it doesn't have a distribution deal, but I would suspect that after winning a best documentary feature, that it would have a distribution deal. This is good. This is real good, and you will talk about it for forever. One last thing I want to mention on it is that George's significant other is arguing with him about why is he always trying to save his mother, because he's always trying to come to the rescue because she keeps going back into the abyss and doing the same thing over and over again. And she says to him, not the mother, his significant other says to him, look, your mother should be saving herself, and she's had all these opportunities to do so. You need to leave that alone. Let her do it by herself. He's saying, you know what? There is a generational effect that the system has on my family, on our families, on my neighborhood, on our community that I just can't ignore, because people who say pick yourself up by your bootstraps, that is a fallacy. is that you can't if the system is just doing all these things to make sure that you stay there. So it's an interesting argument, and they show it in real time between the two of them. And she is his supporter 100%, but she just doesn't. She thinks that his mother, will drive, pull him down. So it's just a real interesting discussion, and it's a discussion I think that we have as Black folks all the time. Do we leave our people? Do we be like, yeah, hey, I was with y'all, but now I ain't with y'all because I ain't got time to be with y'all, and y'all gonna mess up my cheddar. Y'all gonna mess up my money. So love y'all. See y'all. We gonna cut these ties. So it's just a really interesting movie, and I hope you'll get to see it as well. I know you got a chance to see a number of things at South by Southwest, so I'm gonna give you the floor and talk a little bit about it. And first, could you talk about, is it as organized as I think it is?
Okay. Unfortunately, no. In person, it is a mess, and we talked about this at a meeting. Okay, the nice thing about South by is, first of all, this year the weather was horrible. Like, it was colder in Austin than it was in Philadelphia. I was like, this is for the birds. I had to wear like 3 layers. I did not come down here to freeze. Dummy me said, I'm not gonna bring my Parker. I'm not gonna need it. As soon as I was standing in line, I was like, oh, yes, I do. I should have brought that. And my hat, my wool hat, and a couple other things. But having said that, my issue with South by was this year is you have press credentials for a reason. We're all thrown in this line together. Ticket holders, whatever. The volunteers are left hanging. So this year, because allegedly of COVID, the Paramount Theater had this crazy bag policy because they didn't want to search your bag. I guess they didn't want to touch things. So they said you have to have a clear bag, or you could have a clutch bag, or you could use, you know how you get the tote at the different film festivals. I don't have a problem with a policy. I have a problem with a lack of consistency and clear of a policy, and it was changing every day. Now, we all had the app because you needed it for the Express. And that if you would have communicated that very clearly in there, hey guys, there were people that went into a movie at 4 o'clock, came out, were to go back in line for a 6 o'clock, right? 8 o'clock movie, and were told you can't bring the same bag. I was just in the theater. And also, not everybody stays in the center of Austin because it's more expensive, right? A small outlet has a smaller budget. Then be like, you got $800, make that work. And you can at South by Southwest. You just might be 6 to 8 or 10 minutes outside. So imagine you done did all of that. You stood in line. You did what you were supposed to do. The person tells you, oh, you can't bring your bag. Then tells you, oh, you can go in but leave your bag outside unattended. What? Excuse you? With my personals or whatever? The point is, I just feel like with South by Southwest being around for as long as they have, there is no excuse why they are such a disorganized mess. Wow. It should not take that long for you to pick up your credentials. Again, press credentials and everybody else should be separated. That's how it is at every other festival.
It is.
We're not thrown in together. The other thing too is, if it's one of those things where you want to give the homies or whoever it is, then start having press screenings. The Stack Theater next to you was empty. I don't know if it's closed due to COVID or whatever happened, but you could have had press screenings right in here, and it would have been easy breezy, and we would have been done. I just do not understand. You had a whole extra year to get it together, and there was no reason for you to be discombobulated. Wow. And it makes people not want to come, and it's already very exhausting because unlike other film festivals, all this stuff is happening at night. We don't get a chance to see things in the morning, like at 9 or 8 o'clock. Once in a while, you'll catch things at 1 or something. And I am just like, if that theater, and one of the reasons why they picked that theater because it sits 1,500, but if that theater cannot help make your guests or the people that are there to cover it a nice experience, then maybe they shouldn't host. Maybe it's better to do what TIFF does and show the same movie and 5 or 6 theaters, and we call it a break, and people can feel comfortable and people can feel welcome.
I
Just
feel
it was just not a good experience in terms of that type of a policy. On the one hand, one thing I will say, if you needed a COVID test, they did a really great job with the COVID testing. You got PCR and antigen. You got your results in less than 24 hours. So that is one thing, because some events didn't want that extra piece of scrutiny.
Yeah.
As far as the other thing that I agree with you, Reggie, is there are a gazillion events and a zillion places where you can network. You know, I finally got a chance to meet some of the publicists from Warner Brothers at the EW party, right? One thing I will say, most of the parties were held outside. They were like, it had open space. The food, one thing I will say, South by Southwest, the people that have parties and events do a really good job in making sure to feed you. They're not just giving you a whole bunch of liquor, which I never understood. So you want me to be a drunken Melly? You know what I mean? So they did a good job of making sure that there was food for you to soak up. Because it's always like vodka. It's never like, you know, a little glass of Chardonnay. It's always like, we got to go full tilt because that's
right.
a liquor sponsor, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So at least you had some bread and some other things to soak that up. I really liked Amazon setup. I thought the whole Lizzo experience and how they did the, how can I say this? How they did the, promoting her program and just promoting, like Laz and a couple other people were down there to promote the boys. I thought they did a really good job in setting that up and having that panel. I think we still need to do better about having some inclusivity in these panels. But I think like the brands like Twitter House, CNN House, they did a really, really good job in terms of like promoting their brands and things like that. You know, but again, that's not necessarily part of the official South by Southwest. Now we get to the movies.
Yeah.
I saw The Lost City. Sandra Bullock is I love Sandra Bullock. I like love.
I was supposed to see that yesterday. I just didn't make it to see it. So.
It's fine, but you know, if you do get a chance, I think it's really great. One thing I do like about South by, that they do have some comedies once in a while, and amidst all of this sadness, you know what I mean? So I do like. I love her. It's a totally silly movie, but that's okay. Then I did see the Michelle Yeoh film. I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it, but I loved her in it.
I love her. I
love her. And I think, you know, I mean, 50, I believe she's 58 and she's been in this business over 30 years. This is her first lead. Like, what are we doing here, people? But I'm happy for her and that she's getting to stand in front. You know what I mean?
And I am really happy about that. That was one of the things that I was really excited about, is that she got to lead. And I just didn't want to gloss over your point of what are we doing, people. Here's a person who is phenomenal. I'm not talking about okay. Michelle Yeoh is not.
She can do everything.
She's not like, oh, okay. But I guess because she's so good, there's certain times where she's playing characters that are not the lead, that it's just so good that she just, I guess, fits into the landscape of many of the movies that she does. But all of her performances just are out. I mean, they stand out to me. So
she is really special. And
special.
I also like her martial arts, because I always feel like she kicks your butt so smoothly. Like, it's so elegant. Like, you know, she's about to tear everything up, but it's very elegant. You know what I mean? I'm like, I want to look this cool when I grow up too.
I want to be like her.
I do too, right? And it's just like,
sure.
She makes you think you could do it, but then reality checks in and like, no, you can't. You can get yourself hurt. Don't do that.
Give me two more movies.
Oh, okay. So I liked Apollo 10.5, which I thought was super creative, which is a movie about a kid that grew up. If you're a person from Houston, this will be up your alley, because if you're a person who grew up in the Houston area, especially late 60s to 70s, about how NASA affected that community and growing up and being in a family and watching the space takes off. So I thought that was really creative. But the movie I'm going to really get into is kind of complements your movie, which is, I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly, Women on the Outside, right? Which is A Woman on the Outside, which actually is about Crystal Bush, who's from Philadelphia, and she started a service which Bridging the Gap LLC, which helps bring people who are family members to visit, provide transportation, excuse me, for people who have family that are incarcerated. And I think that is such a great idea, because a lot of times, like for instance, you may be from Philadelphia, but your relative is serving time upstate, and those places are hard to get to via public transportation. So she started a service. I think the women pay something like $10-15 to ride the bus to take them up to the prison to see their relatives. Now, you start watching it and you think it's about that, you know what I mean, and how to try to keep families together. But you realize the reason Crystal is doing that is kind of like your film. Is her father was incarcerated most of her life. Her older brother's incarcerated, and her younger brother's incarcerated, and she's the only girl in the family. She's the superstar, like you said. Is all of them come from the same family, and she's the one who Temple grad. She went and got a degree in sociology. She became a social worker because she wanted to be that advocate for other kids and help them maneuver the system, because she went through some of these things. And she also adopted her youngest brother's son, because his mother too is her younger brother's son. Mother is in and out of prison, and she didn't want him to be caught up in the system. So she took responsibility for him, and she's kind of like there for her mother and stuff like that. And you see how the family, you know, how it hurt the family, you know, the brothers not having their father there to raise them. The younger brother, you know, kind of like understanding that, you know, his sister raising his son doesn't mean that he's not going to be in his life, but she can give him something that he can't, which is stability. But it was really heartbreaking. And I think kind of like what you said is, we hear so much about prison and this type of thing, but we don't realize that the pipeline to prison, and in these stories, your movie and my story, is really a big contribution to the breakup of the Black family. It's a big contribution of how a lot of kids have ended up raising themselves, and we wonder why we got some of the miscommunication that we have amongst Black men and Black women, because a lot of people had to fend for themselves. They never had anybody to teach them how to love, how to have a healthy relationship, just how to do basic things. So I think, you know, we forget, when a person goes upstate, the family also pays a very, very heavy price. Like, she lost contact with her father, I think, when she was at grade school, because her mother, I think, was hard for her to get up there. And then as an adult, when she was old enough and she could drive and stuff, that's when she reconnected with her father, because she was able to see him on her own. But it's a heartbreaking film. It is sad, especially everything that's going on here in Philadelphia with the homicide rate, and you know, it's really, really sad. Innocent people. The other day, a gentleman was carrying his baby. He was walking somewhere. He caught a bullet, and by the grace of God, the baby didn't get hurt. But it's just, something's got to be worked out.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I'm really good. That film was one of those as well that breaks your heart, because you see this woman work so hard but I'm so glad you paralleled the two movies, because she worked so hard to do so many things. In Master of Light, you have him trying to save his nephew. He's like, look, dude, you write, you rap. I know you're using the pain. I mean, you're using art to put out, to talk about your pain, to deal with the pain in your life. And that's what I did. So let me help you so you don't go through the same thing. You go to this film and you get the young lady. She's like, I am not letting my nephew go through the same thing. So it's so interesting that I understand people who want to believe that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but the reality is that I can just speak for myself, is that there's no way I would be where I am without other people. There's just
no way. No way. We all had a hand. And I'm glad the other thing too is when I was watching that, the thing that I was thinking myself, I have to remember that she was 28 years old. I'm like, she is 28, really living the life of like a 45-year-old. So I was happy to see her enjoy herself for her birthday, getting her hair done. I was happy for her to have
get a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, you're 28. You need to live a little bit. You need those moments where you get to be a young girl to just party and just decompress. Because this young woman, my God, I was poo-pooing and crying, and it was just, I was like, girl, you need a break.
When you see Master of Light, you might not cry as much, but it'll touch you deep though, because it's like you said, some of the same stuff. I turned around because I had to pick up this book. This is a book from my cousin, and it's called Halfway Home, and it's Race, Punishment, and the Afterlife of Mass Incarceration. And it really talks about all the rules that you have to follow when you get out of jail, what jail does to the family. It's an interesting look at the impact of mass incarceration, and I think that both of these movies actually touch on that as well. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I'll leave you the last word if you have a last word on South by Southwest, because then I want to just get a few minutes with you on the award season.
No, I mean, I think the quality of movies is good. I think we need to streamline, because I think it's important for the city of Houston. I think a lot of people are very hesitant about going to Texas, about what's going on with some of the politics. So you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward, and that, you make people feel welcomed.
That's good stuff. Well, it's award season. Again, we got to see each other out there for the AFCA Awards. We missed each other for the Critics' Choice Awards. And this probably would have been a great year to be out there, because they had some people out. They had Serena. They had Venus. They actually, not actually, they sound like I'm surprised. They had so many of the stars at Critics' Choice. I was very, very happy with the fact that a lot of people, other stars, attended the award ceremony. Will was there, Ingenue, Halle Berry, so on and so forth. So I thought that was good. So I'm sorry I missed you for that. Next year, I'll make sure that we get out there and do that, because I heard they have some good parties too. But there's two things that I want to talk about as it relates to award season. Next week, we could talk a lot about award season, because we'll have KB with us. But two things that I've noticed. Everybody in the world, I'm talking about probably even in one of those SpaceX things, believes that Ariana DeBose is a bad sister. She is winning. I looked today to see all the different organizations. She cleaning up everybody. And so here's the one time you, my Afro-Latina sister, cannot say nothing. You can't say nothing, because everybody knows that she killed it in West Side Story.
I was like, when the movie came out, I was like, listen, this girl, like, I knew she could dance, but she did the damn thing. I mean, people, and the other thing too is, people don't give that community where she comes from, which is the Broadway community. And she will tell you she's a dancer first, second, and third, singer, actress after. And it doesn't mean that she doesn't want to do things that don't involve dance. But the point is that performing on Broadway is one of the hardest things, because it's not like you can turn to the audience and cut. I'm going to come back and we're going to start again. You know what I mean? Or you took a bad turn. You go, oh, everybody, my bad. You can't do that. Number one, them tickets are way too expensive. And people have to understand is that people are doing that show twice on Wednesday and twice on Sunday. And she moved to New York when she was 18 years old, because she was 16 when she did So You Think You Can Dance. She moved after that to New York, and she literally worked her way from the back to the front.
Well, she is in the front. The girl is in the front. Let's
She's
talk
in
about
the front.
let's
So
talk about
I
the one
mean,
she won. She got Golden Globe.
she deserves
She
it.
got
And it's like,
BAFTA.
yeah,
She
and
got
it's not an
CTA.
overnight sensation. You know what I mean? So people that be like, oh, they just give me, I'm like, no, the girl is 30. I believe she's 31 now. So what do you mean it was an overnight? And I'm also glad that she has another gig like that, because that's the other thing, right? Our people be getting awards and things like that. And I'm like, the award needs to be more work and cut the check. Same thing, like Anjane is doing more things. Cut the check, don't just invite them to come to the table and look cute and do all this other stuff. Pay them for their talents.
Yeah, well, she won. If I'm looking here, she has 27 wins under her belt, and I mean, really,
And
she
she's
just
a sweetheart. Like, she's an absolute sweetheart. There's no airs about herself. She is, I think the nicest thing that people are telling her is enjoy it, be in the moment, you know what I mean? And she is really such a pleasure to speak to. And like I said, is if it helps young Black and brown girls to stand a little taller in dance class, seeing her up there, that's always a good thing.
well. So that's one thing that I want to mention, and I'm really hoping that it's going to be consistent that she gets that Oscar. So that's going to be great. I know we'll talk about this more in depth next week. And the other thing that I want to mention is that I'm surprised. He hasn't won everything, but Will is winning a lot of stuff himself. So I those are the two things that kind of stood out for me. Any thoughts about Will?
I think it's just his time. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, I had to tell people, I said, I think the women outshine him in this, but I also feel like, before he had some really great performances, I think he should have been nominated for The Pursuit of Happiness. My one thing, it was like, Will needed to show up for the AFCA Awards. I'm like, your wife got on Beyonce's internet and said, when her husband didn't get nominated, that these white award shows were not taking care of Black people. And when you have an opportunity to put your money where your mouth is, you didn't come and accept your award or even send in something. So I think Will and Jada, we looking at you, because you had a problem. It wasn't me. I didn't make that video. You did. But I do think, as far as Will, I think that is Will's time. And it's kind of like he's getting rewarded for this performance, but it's also like a combination of, you're still here. This is probably your best work in a long time. We're just going to give it to him because it might not happen again. And the last time he lost out to Denzel, and we know Denzel is going to get nominated again, whereas with Will, we don't know if it's such a given.
Yeah, I think that cheapens it a little bit, though. To
It
say,
is, but that's how it works, though, right? How
I'm
many
just saying.
people,
I think
like
I
Paul
hear you.
Newman, should have won for a gazillion other things, and he ends up winning for the verdict, right? There's
Well,
15
and then
performances
Denzel winning
before
for
that.
Training Day. I mean, I hear you. I do. I just think that kind of cheapens it for them.
But you know what? That's how Hollywood works. Sadly, we would like to be, I would like to sit on here and say, you like, same thing, Al Pacino, like, how do you not win for The Godfather, but you win for The Scent of the Woman? Like, it just be crazy stuff like that, where you're like, it don't make no type of sense. But at the same token, you are happy for people being acknowledged for putting in the hard work. You know what I mean? And he's been in the business a good 20 years as far as on the acting side. And, good for him that he's still here and he's still making a difference.
Yep. No doubt. Look. Again, we're gonna have a real robust discussion next week because it is. Oh, am I here? Yeah, I am here next week.
I was like, where are you going, Reggie?
Well, unfortunately, we had a death in the family, so I have to travel.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have to travel, but I am here on Thursday, so hopefully we'll be able to get it in on Thursday. But look, this is the Real Critic Roundtable. I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic. That's Katia Woods. If you don't know, you need to ask somebody. She's everywhere. I'm like,
no, Reggie, don't that, because Reggie be on here in the hoodie. But when he's out and about, he be suited and booted. So you might see him and be like, that looks like Reggie Ponder. And Reggie be incognito out in these Chicago streets.
Look. Again, I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic. that is our show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Katya, and we'll see you next week. Now, of course, I gotta find my off button. So
It's okay, Reggie.
here we go.